tight. There we go. All right. That was beautiful music. And we are live now, David. Thank you for being gracious and coming back on again. Like we were talking a little bit ahead of time, I was I was a little distraught because my voice was so garbled last time. You sounded beautiful, but my voice was garbled. So
I think it
I
was, but hey, it can only keep going, getting better. Look at your skills. You're amazing.
thank you.
You're a
Um,
natural born podcaster,
well,
interviewer.
inter, you know, the one gift that I have that I was able to put to use right away
Hmm.
is I can talk.
Well, there you go. You were made for such a time as this. This is your time.
Well, um, I don't want to make light of this particular situation, but in my interview with Tom Politzer last night, I was just telling you, we mentioned you, and one of his listeners go, "I love David Ault,"
Oh,
and right, and then I was thinking that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when would he and I, or you and I, have taken the time to sit for an hour and talk, and who would have taken the time to sit for an hour and listen? And the longer this stretches out, it gives me a chance to maybe build an audience. If we all
absolutely.
go back to work tomorrow, people would stop listening.
So enjoy the now and use the now. And that's what you're doing. So I commend you for that.
Thank you. Now, I'm just going to jump right into this. I was watching you and your live stream on Sunday, and the thing that I picked up on was in order to receive, we have to let go. And I have a little bit of a personal story, and then I'd like to have you talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Is back before I joined the circus, and Tom and I we that's how we met, is on this circus as a drummer is how I started. I was living in Nebraska and I was down and out, and I was riding on a Greyhound bus, and I was having one of those sort of spiritual crying, God, what am I going to do moments? And I remember sitting on this bus and saying, okay, God, I'm ready and willing to let go of everything that I think I want you to that I think I want to do, and I'm willing for to be whatever you want me to be. If it's a janitor, if it's a sweep floors or whatever it is, if I have to work at McDonald's, I'm just ready. And I got off the bus, I walked home, and that's when I got a phone call from this guy named Steve Kroll, and he said, "I am the band leader for Circus Vargas, and we need a drummer in 2 days." And that phone rang the minute I opened the door,
Mhm.
and that's when I met Tom, and we were talking last night. So from that point of view, I was willing to let go of what I thought I needed and what I thought my life was supposed to be. And that's when I was ready to let God give me, and I was willing to receive, and that's what I received. And now bringing that to today's topic, in how we making applying this in today's world, when everything that I was doing and thought I was going to have and how my life was going is completely gone right now. And what do I need to open up to receive new? That's my lead in to what I wanted to focus on with you today.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, first of all, start off by thinking of it as a uh, physics problem. Um, in order for something new to be able to come in, you have to make space for it. It's as simple as that. And so if if you apply that particular principle to us, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of those particular holistic categories that make up the self, then it stands to reason that, um, start with identity. If you're so locked into a particular label of who you are and what you are, or this is how I make my living, or this is what I'm good at, or even with reciprocity, I gave to you, so you must give to me. And we become so stringent and unbendable in those particular identity labels, then nothing new can get in. No new awareness or higher knowledge of what we are can present itself, because we're not making space for that. And so, you have to stop for a moment and think about yourself as an evolutionary being. You're
Mhm.
not inert. You're not stagnant. There's nothing about you that is. What you are is just a bundle of molecules just spinning so rapidly, but it's contained within this skin suit, right? And and all of that is energy, and energy is directed, and in it by and you are the director. So if you're stuck with an identity, then all that you're doing is trying to contain energy into being the same form, rather than allowing yourself to just surrender like you did in the story. uh, you are surrendering your identity, or you are surrendering really your need to control the situation, or it has to look like this. And then and only then is space created. Then and only then can the new awareness, the new idea, the creativity that has been in the ethers all along, all of those things are finally given permission to be able to download themselves enough so that you can hear it. It's not that it's not there right now. It's just that when we're so locked into the identity, and um, then there is no space for the new. It's just more of a physics thing than anything. It's science and spirituality, if you will, combined together. So, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? Um,
Isn't that
if you are, yeah, go ahead.
oh, that's sort of where we are as a world, as a country, as a nation. All of that is happening right now, I believe. Something is the how we've identified as a society is changing right now in front of our eyes, I think. And
And, yes, and that has always been. In other words, this isn't some new thing that just came in like a tsunami. It's the thing that's always been in the ethers. My personal belief is that there's enough of us on the planet who have been doing our own personal work, if you will, to let go of our identities and surrender in whatever format you do that. There's enough of that that when you get enough of the populace leaning into more openness and more mindfulness and more self-awareness, a tipping point happens. And the tipping point is the thing that's actually the tsunami. And it brings something into the societal experience or the cosmological experience that says, okay, enough of you are on the same page, if you will. So whoosh, let's bring everybody else in on the same page. And so uh, it's like there are those who are doing it willingly, and then there will be those who will do it kicking and screaming. But the idea is that eventually we will all arrive to an awareness that the way we've been doing things isn't really beneficial.
it really feels like that right now.
Yeah. And
The
it's okay
way
to freak out. It's okay to be kicking and screaming. You know, that's a part of the birth process. Birthing is messy. And when you're birthing a new identity, uh, the last thing that you need are people trying to tell you how to birth, because your birth is your birth, right? And so make sure, and this is where you do have some semblance of choice in the inevitability of evolution. You do get to choose and decide who's going to be your feedback, or who's going to be your guidepost, or who's going to be the people within your selective tribe that are there not to shame you, but to champion you wherever you are in the process.
Mm. For me, in the last since I've known you, the last 20 years, I have changed who I associate with based on how they see me, because they
Mhm.
see me as a light rather than somebody who sucks. People that I used to be around, oh, you're not good enough. Oh, you're not that. And I've chosen to be around people more like you. And so uh, you help reflect back to me the goodness in me rather than the darkness in me.
Mhm.
So that would be an example of who we choose to be around.
Sure. And so think about that. If you purposefully do that, then that's also the opportunity for you to do that for you. So the more that you are getting that feedback, and the more that you're absorbing it and not deflecting it but allowing it, then what takes place on the inner gets reflected back in the outer. And so again, it's when you begin to make the shift in your own identities, your own internal themes that you've associated yourself with. Not good enough, not this, not that, I'm a fraud, oh my God, if people only knew. All of the universal stuff that everybody has. But when you just go, okay, thanks for sharing, and you lean more into the greater capital T truth of what you are, then the more of that again gets reflected back in the outer world. And that helps you that helps you find those people that you want to be with, and you want to collaborate with, and you want to create with. And that does become your self-selected tribe.
Hmm.
That form of tribalism is not a bad thing. It's when the tribe then starts to think that they're better than everybody else. That's where it gets off the rails. But by tribal, I'm talking about the fact that you are consciously surrounding yourself with like-minded, compassionate people who value your worth.
Mm.
And it's not that their tribe, that tribe that you choose, is better than anybody else's tribe. That's just your tribe.
Right. And the tribe that I choose is a tribe that is more loving and more
Cool.
self-aware. And it's really hard to not be judgmental sometimes from my own point of view, especially in these days when I'm sitting here and seeing the country go through all of this stuff. When you're saying, birthing everything, and then we've got two distinct, in some ways, two distinct sides that are sitting there and pointing their fingers at the other side. And there's two distinct tribes, if you will. And
Mhm.
I think that shouldn't be. We are all the same. If we could get out of that, where I'm better than you,
Mhm.
I think is what I'm hearing you saying. I'm bringing this more to a national, thing where our our tribe
Mhm.
is more, even though it's this could take me a minute to get there, but I'll get there. So we have a small group of people, let's say you and Karen and some of our friends. We've got a small, that's our tribe, but we're part of a bigger tribe that's similar to us, which then we can just keep expanding that circle out to encompass, a good portion of the country. And then you've got another small group of friends and they intersect. At some point, we all intersect. And the more those edges and those boundaries of those two tribes can soften and start moving together, instead of pointing the fingers and saying, no, you're wrong. You, for example, you Republican, you're wrong. You Democrat, you are wrong. No, we actually are all right. and let's soften those edges. But it all eventually comes back to me personally and the choices I make. Did I did I just make any sense at all?
Of course you did. And if that's what rings true for you, then by all means follow that.
Mm,
Um, I think the thing that we get to be cautionary about is that tribe and this tribe. There's really
mm,
only one tribe. Um, there's really only one tribe. There's only one thing. There's only one expression of life, and then we're all individuating it. And
mm,
in our individuation, big words, um, each persona, everybody has, go back to science, everybody has a vibration. So naturally, whatever whatever persona or individualization of the one that you are vibrating with is going to automatically attract people who are vibrating at that same frequency. Forgive the jargon, but that's
right,
really the only way I can think of to explain it in simplistic terms. If someone else is vibrating at a lower or higher frequency, it's not better than or less than, it's a different frequency. That frequency is going to vibrate and attract people who are there as well. It's the same as when there used to be the buttons in the car for the radio and you would just keep changing the channel, right? And
right.
so but the thing is we're all made of the same stuff. We're all a part of this one allness. And so it isn't about trying to convince someone else to be on our vibration. I think that's really where we get off the rails is we think in an arrogant sort of way that we have the answer. I've certainly been there. I'll find something that's just so meaningful, and all of a sudden I want everybody to do it. And it's like it's not meant for everybody. It's for me to do it. It's for me to integrate it and to embody it and to refine it and to do whatever it is that I need to do to be it in the world and then go do that thing rather than pontificating and trying to convince and cajole and enlist. That's really not what it's about. I just came across a Saint Francis quote that said God, something about God use me, and whenever and if it's ever necessary, provide me the words.
Mm,
Or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but it was more or less, let me actually just be the action of whatever is pure and compassionate and solution driven. Let me just be that rather than to talk about that. And so when you decide that you're going to love you, then that's automatically going to energetically influence everything around you.
You and what you just said resonates with something you said last week when we were talking about, and I'm just sort of trying to put it into words the way I understand it is rather than talk the talk so people can hear the talk, you'd rather walk the walk and be the walk
Right.
living example.
Yeah, it's people would rather see a sermon than hear one.
Right.
And so
And
that's all from my years of being a platform spiritual leader. Um, and that's just sort of a mantra for me is I'd rather go do it than just stand up and talk about it. That's the sage on the stage kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with any model. It's just not a model for me. It's solely, completely. I'd rather experiment in the big collective sandbox and see what it is that I can do via my individuation of the one.
mhm.
And so I could talk to you and I could say, don't worry, Jeff, it's all going to work out. And that's not going to mean anything to you until you move into the uncertainty and sit with it. Not try to make it go away, not try to medicate it away, not try to overeat it away, not try to busy it away, but to sit with the feeling of that uncertainty and get in touch with the fact that nothing's really changed. Things have changed in the effect, but nothing's really changed in the level of cause or in the level of thought. You still have the same access, the same power. You still have the same abilities. And so this is your time. This is my time. This is everyone's time to actually kind of, crudely put up or shut up. Do it. Do it. And again, putting up and shutting up doesn't mean you don't have your freak out. But again, don't stay there.
Mm.
If someone's not holding a gun to your head and saying, keep freaking out, then remove the pistol and take the time and find some structures, find some practice in order to go. Things change out there all the time. Change in the world of effect is constant. But the one true cause, and that's again where you have to find what that is for you. Do you really believe in the one true cause that, or it has to be?
Mm.
And
Um,
that's the thing that we pontificate, but boy, do we want to run away from it when it's inconvenient. I know. Take a breath.
I have had to stop reading Facebook. I have had to remove my posts where I'm saying shit about shit, basically, because it was affecting me internally and in a negative way.
Mhm.
I know that there's certain things out there I don't like. There's nothing that I can do by constantly hammering that I don't like the president or like the president or that you need to, like you were just saying, getting caught up in all of that only keeps me away from looking at what you just said, what's going on in me. And
Mhm.
it disturbs me and it causes me to be in a constant freak out mode. And by not paying attention to it and spending my time sitting and being quiet, I'm not burying my head in the sand and ignoring it or ignoring the fact that there's a coronavirus, ravaging people. I'm not ignoring the problem. I'm just not letting it affect my internal source anymore. I'm not going to get caught up in all of the talk, 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 and only just deal. I can only take care of those around me.
Mhm.
And I can't do anything about New York. I can't keep telling people about New York.
Mhm.
So I think what you're, I'm just trying to put into my own context of what you just said, the words I just heard you
Right.
say.
So
And
think about it. And you're right. We've never had a pandemic before and social media at the same time.
mm,
I mean, in the 80s, there was a pandemic with AIDS, and it affected those of us in the gay community, where the rest of the country could have been completely oblivious or didn't care, or didn't get involved when it was massive. But we didn't have social media, and the immediacy of that in order to participate. And here we are. Here we are on a global scale at the same time that there is social media.
mhm,
And what I find interesting is you're right. There are personalities within our friends list who are constantly posting what's wrong, or constantly posting something inflammatory about someone else. It's not right or wrong, good or bad. Let's just look at it from an energy perspective. So, what makes the person do that thematically? And by thematically, I'm talking constantly, right? That's inflammatory energy. And so that inflammatory energy cannot help but inflame inflame the vessel or the physicality of the person who is constantly expressing the inflammatory energy, because that becomes the host environment. So then you start to see how that inflammatory hosting of that energy breaks down the physicality of that person. And the compassionate part of me wants to go, stop it, but you're not helping. Yes, you have an opinion. We all have an opinion, and we all have a belief, and we all feel strongly about things. But that's the part, that's the distinction. And I think we talked about this last time, between fighting against something or working for something. And so that's what a vision is, right?
Mm.
And so the vision part is the thing that we have to get concrete in our minds. What's my vision for my life? What's my vision, contribution to the planet? Because when I can get really clear about that, I can move into the inflammatory. I can move into the systemic issues. I can be in all of that. And by merely me having loyalty to my vision, I don't burn out. I'm not affected by the inflammatory nature of everyone else. Again, it's not good nor bad, right or wrong. It's I'm actually contributing to the betterment of. I'm actually helping bring the peace, if you will, into situations where if I'm just railing along with everybody else, that's mob mentality. I might as well have a torch and my pitchfork and march along with everybody else and lose my sense of self.
Mm.
And so it doesn't make anyone passive who chooses to embrace and strengthen their vision. It makes them resilient. And what we need is more resiliency within us as people.
A couple of things came up for me while you were talking. And first, there needs to be within me a sense of awareness enough to know when I get caught up in that, how I feel, whether
Mhm.
I'm caught up in something that's really good and how that makes me feel, whether it makes me feel joyful or or happy or enlightened or whatever the feeling is. And it's not good or bad.
Right.
The stimulus is not good or bad. It's just my response to it. So also my awareness of when I get upset or angry or whatever it is, those feelings are not good or bad, but what that does to me internally.
Mhm.
And the thing that I've become aware of is that when I stay caught up in some of the mob mentality sort of thing, the negativity and all of that, that I am wearing myself out to the point where I'm more susceptible to even more negativity and catching something and getting sick and being tired. And when I become aware of that, it's not about anybody else. And this is what I'm hearing you saying. I'm just saying it for myself so I can
Sure. Yeah.
latch onto it. It's about me just taking care of me and becoming aware of how I'm feeling and staying grounded and centered. Okay, this makes me feel bad, this thing over here. This makes me feel good, this thing over here. Okay, so it's not about them, it's just about my personal choice and response to it.
Right. And as you give yourself permission to do that for you, can you also give other people permission to do that as well?
That is let me give you just an example of what I'm going through today, giving permission to someone close to me to be crazy or
Mhm.
not responsible for my opinion. So, my daughter's mom was close to someone that had tested positive for coronavirus, and they were supposed to be together this week. Now, my daughter and I don't really want them to be together because of possible catching, but now the mom is no, you're gonna come over, I'm fine. And Mackenzie and I are kinda going, "Oh, and we're not so sure," but we don't want her to be upset. So I'm trying to be okay. She can feel and think whatever she wants, and we're trying not to respond, and we're talking, between the 2 of us how we're gonna deal with it and internalize it, but it's not up to me to try to change her or make her feel, our opinion of all of this. It Does that make sense a little bit?
So, so let with everything that you've presented here,
Mhm,
you get to put on your parent hat,
mhm,
and you get to consider and abide by the knowledge and the wisdom that has been put forth from the medical community, and that anyone who's exposed needs to have a 14-day quarantine.
right,
And so, as the parent, and if Mackenzie is there in your home, you have the authority to make that decision,
right,
whether without concerning yourself about your former wife's feelings or not, because it isn't about her. It's about Mackenzie's welfare. And
mhm,
that's something that any parent would naturally gravitate to, I would hope. So again, whatever the repercussions of how angry she's going to be or whatever her emotional state will be at that news,
mm,
again, this is now into the arena of advice, is
right,
I would just say that as a parent, given all of the wisdom and the data that is out there, that that's the most loving thing that you could do for everybody,
right, right,
for
right.
everybody.
And we've been talking about that too, and having that discussion. So, I only bring that up because I'm wondering, if there's people listening
Hmm.
that are in those same kinds of things, and it's important because it can become really emotional, and I can get angry and caught up, but it's important to stay grounded and stay
Hmm.
centered and what's right, and put on, as you said, the parent hat or the big boy hat, or oh, okay, well, here's the facts, and be responsible.
Sure.
And I think in this day and age, there's a lot of people that are thinking about those things. One one other example, my neighbor across the street is in the same boat as me trying to make money. So he went out. We both applied for the Amazon Flex delivery app.
Hmm.
So he takes his first afternoon yesterday, and he goes thinking that everybody's going to be responsible. He shows up to get 37 packages, and all of the people in this Amazon delivery place all running around, no gloves, no masks, getting close to each other, throwing the packages in. And he started thinking, I've got 2 little girls.
Hmm.
I don't know if these people have been safe or whatever. I'm delivering packages. And do I want to come out for the $35, $40 I'm going to make this afternoon? Is it worth it, me risking myself and then going home? So there's decisions like that right
Hmm.
now that people are going through,
Right.
even even going to the grocery store, and and I understand the fear around it, and getting caught up in that. And now I'm kind of shifting this all back to, if we stay centered and do the right things and stay, um, uh, listen to the all of the medical community, and be sensible, then we take care of ourselves. And if it means not being able to work, even though the job is there, in order to keep your family safe, well, I respect that,
Hmm.
and the money will show up at some point. But it all comes back to honoring yourself, and uh, taking care of yourself in an appropriate way, and staying grounded and centered, and me taking care of my child's well-being. And I think from that point of view, bringing this whole conversation into, it's what, as a country, as a world, we're all facing, and we're being sort of forced into this. This is a moment where we all have to go there, and get into that, the depth of of that, I think, and the more we resist, the more we're gonna keep getting beat over the head with it.
Yeah. I mean, I could take your neighbor's situation and dissect it a little bit. And forgive me, but my dissection is always going to be based in the spiritual.
Well, and
So,
as it should be.
so, so here's what he does. He says yes to the part of him, to the part of him that is the identity of responsibility. He says yes to that. He's willing to set aside any thoughts of this work is beneath him because he's looking at ways to be able to provide for his family.
Mhm.
So that's fair. So there's that. He shows up for this particular assignment, sees what it is that you describe, and I don't know if did he decide not to do it?
Yes.
And so he decides for the betterment of his family to not do it. So there's great wisdom here on a multitude of levels. And one is that the metaphor of that entire situation is the responsibility that we carry and the idea of providing for. And then we get locked into the identity that that provision has to be look a certain way. It has to be transactional. I have to go and do this or this or this. And I would prefer to do this, and this is more glamorous, or this is in alignment with my skills and talents. But now that that is halted, now I got to go do this. But still, it's the idea of that's the way that the provision's going to come. So he says yes to that. And at the same time, then realizes that that particular pathway is not good. It's not wise out of a place of love. So what there is for him and for you and for all of us in the same situation is to go, what do I believe? Do I believe that provision is solely transactional in the world out there, or can provision be transactional by here?
Mm.
And so if he could turn away from that, if you could turn away from that assignment, and you come home and you go, okay, I surrender. I'm thinking that this is what I'm supposed to do. If this is not what I'm supposed to do, then I surrender to and let go of my need to control what it looks like. And I can open and I'm open and available for whatever it is that that you, meaning the cosmic you, whatever it is that intelligence wants me to go to or to participate in order to have the experience of provision. Does that make sense?
It does.
And
And
yeah, so just real quick, and so here's the identity that I would say the masses of us have, that in order to have this much, we have to do this much. In order to have this much, we have to do this much. But that's an identity. That's a belief. And what if that we just did this much and we got this much? But this much is simply sitting and going, I'm teachable. I'm teachable. I surrender. I surrender and let go of my panic. I let go of my bloody knuckled grip. I let go of all of that. I'm teachable. Show me. Show me. Just like you did in the very beginning of this hour when you were on that. And lo and behold, if by creating that vacuum, something showed up.
and that's one thing that I wanted to say based on what you were just saying. It's the topic of what I wanted to talk about was in order to receive, you have to let go.
Mhm.
And how frightening it is to go, "Ah, but I I don't know, I've never done that." And it's terrifying right
Mhm.
now for it was terrifying for me in a moment a couple of weeks ago when I found myself on the floor absolutely crying I've never been in a situation like this, and I know I'm not alone.
Mhm.
The amount of people whose lives have completely changed on one day it's one way, the very next day, it's never gonna be the same again in a dramatic way,
Right.
unlike anything we've ever experienced. The and I just in our talking about it right now, I can feel what the panic feels like. I'm going, "I understand." And how how do we let go? We're so used to grabbing on and having it this way, and this is all we know, to
Mhm.
being thrust into something we don't know and not be completely terrified. I can totally get that. But if we profess a faith in God, if we profess a faith in something,
Something.
then we need to learn to do this. And uh, instead of going, God save me, God save me, God save me, I got to go,
I am quote quote saved. There's nothing
right,
to be saved from. So
right.
open my eyes.
Yeah.
And I'll add this too. I mean you're spot on. Um, that where we run into trouble or where we get sidelined is in personalizing everything that you just talked about in terms of the pain, my pain. Like last year was not a good year for me in human form, and I was talking to somebody who was willing to listen at the end of the year, and I kept saying my pain or referring to it as my pain, and they very gently looked at me and they said, David, I know you know this already, but what if it's not your pain, but it's just the pain, the collective pain. And since you're an instrument and I'm an instrument and everybody else is an instrument of the one, then what you're feeling is the collective pain. But it's not yours. It's just the pain.
Mm,
And when you can allow yourself to not own it or hoard it or identify it, but just feel it and let it wash through you just as you would let joy wash through you, or happiness wash through you. Or laughter, we don't laugh 24/7. Something stimulates the laugh, we express the laugh, and it's over with. Something
mm,
stimulates the pain, we express the pain, and then it can pass on again rather than keeping it and identifying it and making it special, and that's why I've done talks before, and it's very provocative, but the talk title is Your Pain Isn't Special. And people are like, what?
what? I'm
What?
not unique. You mean I'm not
And
unique?
and yeah, and
Yeah.
and and it's not about diminishing anyone's experience, but it's trying to get them to see that when we make the pain special, then we're never free from it
Mm,
because now we've idolized it.
mm,
But when we just when we just give ourselves permission to experience it and not judge it, just experience it, then that too shall pass. And that's the space, that's the vacuum, that's the way in which the ebb and the flow. I think we talked about that the last time too. The natural state of life is ebb and flow. The
mm.
ebb is just as valuable as the flow.
You know, a couple of things that you just said is going to make this fairly deep, fairly quick. For
You're
first,
so fun. I love
first, first, let me say the hardest thing that has been for me, and I've talked a little bit about this with you. Uh, I've been sober in Alcoholics Anonymous for 42 years now,
Congrats.
and in all of that and all of the stuff that I've moved through in that, the hardest thing in all of my life is to be aware of pain and have to sit through it without reacting,
Mm,
and just sit through it and just let it be whatever it is, whether it's my rage, my anger,
mhm.
or my fear and my pain, is to not react to it, but just sit through it and allow it to be. But now this is where I'm going to take this into that deeper thing, because you were talking about it's not mine. It's one of all of ours. And I want to talk a little bit about how this oneness we all are a part of, that that sometimes when something happens to the world, we cannot help but be affected by it energetically in our beings.
Mhm.
And a lot of us aren't even aware of how it's affecting us. But if we get to a point where we're aware of how we're feeling and we tune in, we all are able to do this. It takes time, but everybody is born with the same gifts in being able to feel it. If we understand that all of the negativity that's going on that we participate in affects us, and the more we participate in that affects everybody else, and it expands and becomes more negative.
Mhm.
Now, do I want to partake in that, or do I want to partake in, um, do I want to be part of the good and feel the good and live in that? And the more, as one single person becomes that, the more we affect the entire country,
Mhm.
the entire world. And it right now, you said something a little earlier about we're at a tipping point, or there's something emerging, and there's conflict. There's an old way of being, trying really hard to resist, and this new way of feeling as one and trying to be positive and take care. And it to me, it feels like it's, it we're the world is struggling to emerge from that, and understanding that we, for a couple of years, we've been trying to resist that we're all one, but we're being shown right now
Mhm.
that we absolutely are.
Well, and I'm sure you've heard the, you know, uh, it could be a platitude, or but it's wise. It's there's breakdown before there's breakthrough.
Mm,
And so break down again the ebb, break through the flow, both pieces of that, the polarization of it, that the duality of that is necessary to birth something, right? And
yep.
so you know, I think about the archetype of the training that Martin Luther King Jr. used to try and teach the people to go into into to integrate into like diners and things, and have the people sit at the stools while people are spitting on them and hitting them and doing things to them, and to not react to it. And that particular kind of birth of nonviolence, uh, you know, birthing peace through nonviolence, it's described as a physical act, but it's also a, a remarkably profound, you know, spiritual act as well, energetic act as well. It's like if the dry brush is there, the worst thing that I can do is strike the match and throw it in, you know,
Mm,
because all that does is just create the flame. But if am I willing to go into the arena of that and truly be the embodiment of nonviolent action? And nonviolent action doesn't is again, it's not isolated to just physical action, it's mental nonviolence.
mm,
And the best way that we can be, or where the best place to start is with ourselves. So think about it this way. When I personalize and I take ownership of the pain, that's a violent act against myself.
Yeah. And when you say it like that, that brings it real.
Yeah.
It's it's abusive to me when
It's violence towards it's like it's thought crimes against ourselves.
mm,
And so what's the regulatory practice of that for most of us? Daily, hourly, constantly. Constant constant poisoning of energetic poisoning of our soul's purpose. And so I know that you've been a big agape person in Los Angeles, and I know uh, a lot of people are aware of Michael Beckwith's phrase, pain pushes till the vision pulls. But you got to really stop and think about that. Think about that. Pain pushes. What is the pain? Not my pain pushes till my vision pulls, but the pain pushes. So the collective pain pushes all of us almost into a breaking point so that we surrender the identity of the false idea, surrender the label of separation. We are literally almost forced into a corner by this energy of pain so that the vision can actually start to pull every single one of us into living what we were supposed to be living individually and planetarily. And wow, what an amazing time to actually get what was saying by that.
we're seeing it play out
Yeah.
in our neighbors that are now home with their families and enjoying what it means to be with their family
Mhm.
and experiencing each other from that perspective.
And why do you think pain pushes till vision pulls? Because anything that is inherent, so for example, anything that's instinctual, so in you and I, in all of us, instinctually is vision or visionary expression, limitless expression. And so when you and I deny something that's inherent, if it's like it'd be like raising a, a, a baby lion, a lioness or something, and punishing it every time it wanted to roar to the point where, as it grew up, it would become domesticated and maybe the roar would be silenced. But its instinct, its vision as a being is to roar. And so it's like we've been suppressing our roar as individuals and as a species, the roar of collaboration, of magnificence, of creativity, of communal prosperity. There is more than enough on this planet for everybody to thrive. And so that pain of, we're not living up to the instinct of our vision. That pain is going to push us until something happens, until society breaks down. And I
And
think one of the most meaningful things is people saying, gosh, when things return to normal, if they do, will we have forgotten the lesson?
that's what I'm afraid of. And using an unfortunate example experience of 9/11, when that happened and it thrust everybody into a moment, but we returned too quickly to how things were. And things did change, but as a coming together in love, changed to we went back and I think this is going to not to wish harm or anything on anybody, but I would hope this lasts long enough to shift us into more of a loving state. And if all of a sudden this ended tomorrow, I'm afraid we would just return too quickly back to normal.
And
And
so and so then take it upon yourself to just take responsibility of you not returning to whatever it is that you want to evolve from. And that's all that you can do.
right,
Be that, live that. Don't ever forget this time and the look at what you've created. Look at the fertility of what you've created and the talents that you've used And again, you don't know who watches these things.
I don't.
And yet this is the germination of an idea that is sprouting and growing, and it could lead to who knows what. But as long as you just stay true to the vision of creativity and your skills and your talents and your uniqueness, as long as you continue to lean into the vision, then the pain lessens and the vision pulls you more and more and more into what that's supposed to be.
And I'll share, my vision has always been, uh, mind, body, and spirit is how I've always tried to take care of myself, and I have 2 distinct worlds that aren't separate, but I have this spiritual world and a spiritual aspect of my life,
Mhm.
and my musical world and the musical aspect of my life. Now they both intersect to some degree, but this is actually allowing me to do these live streams and that I can bring on both of those worlds and it become part of one, where I get to pull in musicians from world-class musicians that are known and world-class spiritual thinkers like yourself and share both worlds with everybody, which is something that I've always had a vision of being able to do, where we create our uh through spiritual, and music is deeply spiritual,
Mhm.
and that those 2 worlds are sort of one for me, and I would like it to merge, and this is sort of an outpicturing of what that is, and had this not happened, had I not had my meltdown, uh, you know,
Mhm.
couple week and a half ago, I would not have said, "Okay, what the hell do I what can I do right now?" And so this is what I'm doing, and uh, I almost just sitting with you and talking, it makes me, I've been fighting back tears a couple of times. You have that effect on me.
I'm so proud of you. I just am so, so happy um, that this is unveiling for you, that you actually get to taste the idea. You know, you get to taste it. It becomes tangible, and it's not just an idea anymore. It's something practical that you're offering. And I'm so proud that you would choose to do that.
And thank you. And it's also making me really grateful and understand the people that I've known and been able to work with, and grateful that they respect me enough and like me enough to be able to, it validates me from, I'm trying to say that they are willing to take time and sit with me and talk with me and share themselves with me, which ultimately is us sharing with other people.
Mhm.
And uh, what I've come up with, a title of my things is like in the green room,
Cool.
right? And the reason is because, even way back when you and I were doing the Silomar things, we'd
Mhm.
sit
In the green.
before it was time to go out, and we'd talk about this kind of stuff,
Mhm.
right? And so it's, how I'm trying to present this is us just having a conversation and other people listening in, and they get to hear the fruits of your wisdom and
And yours. So,
and
you know,
and
it's collaborative. So,
yes, thank you. And
oh, you're
now
welcome.
I'm gonna kinda segue because we've been at, like, an hour, and I had no idea it's 59 minutes, and I could keep talking with you forever.
Me back. This
But
this is therapeutic for me as much as it's therapeutic for you.
mhm,
And hopefully, the best that you and I can intend is that it's therapeutic for someone else that's watching. And that's
absolutely.
really all that we can do. You know, you just cast the line out there. So
Yeah.
thank you for creating the opportunity and
I
have me back. We'll do it once
I
a week.
will. I will. I'm thinking of having like, every Thursday or something, and call it New Thought Thursday.
Cool.
And so we'll see how all this develops, but, David, thank you so much. I love
You're
you,
welcome. I love
and
you too, man.
I'm gonna play us out with this, beautiful stuff we were listening to a little bit beforehand, and, it's, Wilting Flowers by Brandon Boone, and it says David Ault, but we're not sure it's the same David Ault as you.
It's
But
not, but good for him. All
but
right. Bye, my friend.
all right, all right. Goodbye. Thank you.